What's up everyone, thanks for tuning in. So at request on this episode, I'm going to show you guys how to take out the gauge cluster from your 86 or 89 Honda Accord and how to properly replace your LEDs for backlighting, as well as possibly add LED strips to add different coloring and just jazz up your gauge clusters however you want it. So here we go. Okay, so here's the gauge cluster. I'll talk about this real quick. So one tip that I recommend is to remove the steering wheel. It's definitely doable to remove this whole unit without removing the steering wheel, but it just makes it easier. So if you can make it easy for yourself, I recommend doing it. So while we're actually talking about this and seeing this quick release hub from NRG, if you guys want one of these for your Accord, just get any hub adapter for an 88 to 91 CRX or EF or just EF chassis. They're all the spindles are the same for those years, as well as like the 1993 Integra DA, as well as the EG. From 96 to 2000 Civics, like the EKs or the DC Integras, the 94 to 2000 Integras, all those, to my knowledge, well, for sure the EK take a different spindle, as well as the Integras to my knowledge. I don't think that they stayed the same as the EF chassis and whatnot. So if you guys want one of this, just like look up just look up a hub adapter for a Honda EF chassis Civic. That'll be the easiest search and it'll work. It'll slip right on the spindle. So moving on from that. So the cool thing about this cluster is, unlike the DA cluster, if you guys watched my previous video in regards to that, where all of this is one whole unit, this is not for the Accord. The Accord, this whole part comes off from where this line is here and here. All the AC vents, climate control radio, this is its own unit. So I'll talk to you real quick about where all the disconnect mounting hardware for this thing is. So get a small screwdriver or anything to pry this little cover off. Behind here, there's going to be two screws, one here, one here. A cool way to find them visually is just pop this off and then just go on the outside and look from the outside through the windshield and just kind of like eyeball your way on how to find those screws. It's a little bit harder trying to like snake it here, and yeah, just take my advice on that. And then all the other mounting bolts are kind of similar to the DA. They're all behind these accessory stuff right here, like for the mirror adjustment, keeping the pop-ups permanently up, dimmer switch for your gauge, as well as the rear defroster. This whole thing pops off just like the DA stuff that you've seen in the previous videos. Just pop these off. Behind these are going to be mounting screws that holds this in place. Once you unscrew those, this whole unit should be able to come off. Just make sure to take it off easily so you can disconnect all the wiring in the back. And that's pretty much about it. I'll show you guys that whole process so you know what it looks like and how easy it is. Okay, so I'm going to show you where all the hardware is at. So after popping up that cover, there's going to be a screw there and there. Then for here, there's gonna be one there. There was one right there, but I probably lost it when I was putting this back together after I did my whole LED stuff. Oh, and then one right there, and yep, I think there's only two right there. And so once you get all those off, you ever wondered what the heck this thing was for? Pull out, push down, and you can tilt the steering wheel and all that stuff. So pretty much what you want to do is going to be kind of hard filming. So, okay, so basically push this down. See my monkey feet? Lock that in place. Just pull it back to lock it in place. And this should be low enough to where once you undo that, you can just pull this forward and it comes off. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, all the screws are out. So now you can take this cover off. And then you're left with this. So to take this whole cluster out, there's going to be 4 screws. One here, 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 and there. Now quick note. So in where these holes right here, 2 LEDs used to just, you put them in, turn to the right, locks them in place. There used to be 2 in here. They work just fine for the longest time, or as long as this car, and you guys just see the mileage on it, over 300,000 miles. I've never had one ever go out on me. And it was still like the factory green that this car came with. So I decided just to jazz it up myself. So basically what I did was you see these two screws here and here. Just unscrew this, and then you have full access to this. There's actually a, if you can see from in here. No, you can't really see it. Okay, so this whole white piece comes off. These two screws are holding it in place. So basically what this does is when you turn your headlights on or your running lights or whatnot, these two lights turn on as well as all the backlit stuff, and it just illuminates this entire gauge face and everything. So what I ended up doing was I took those out. This wire you're seeing right here. So just like at your local parts store like AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever you guys have near where you're at, I just got an LED strip, 3M'd it through here. I mean, honestly, you don't have to 3M it, it would just stay in place. When you take this out, there's going to be a blue cover on it that helps kind of like dim the light, so it's not just like a bright shining light that's like blinding all this stuff. So basically that cover, it just comes right off. I believe it was just like double-sided tape, or just like they used a really mild adhesive on it. So just pop that off, put your LED strip in here or whatever you want, whatever color, and I'm running these wires. I'll show you where this goes, pretty much positive, negative, and I'll show you where the positive is for like the for how it works on with when you turn your lights on and stuff, because it's not wired into here. I'm sure one of these I could have spliced into one of them, figured out, but I was just like, why not? I'm not really running too much accessories in this car anyway, so I'm not really too worried about it. I had other options I did. And yeah, so if any of these go out, or if you notice that your gauge cluster is really dim, like, you know, your backlighting for your RPMs, speedometer, all this stuff is working, but just overall just looks really dull, then the possibility of two of these LEDs up here failing could be a high possibility, or you guys can just replace them with just brighter output just to illuminate it just a little bit better. So keep that in mind. So now I'm gonna go on and take this whole unit off and show you the back of it and show you what needs to be done. Okay, so I pretty much kind of have it out already. So some quick notes to tell you guys. So if you have problems pulling it out, so just don't yank it out. The biggest thing holding this thing back in place is the Speedo cable. So some advice for you guys is, if you can't get it from up top, lift it up, go from up bottom. And another thing, if you guys want a better eye view of stuff, consider going outside the car and looking in the back of it. So you see the Speedo cable right there. There's a little button, quick release, just push down on it from up, going underneath the cluster, and disconnect that. Once you do that, you can leave all 4 of the wires connected to this cluster, and you can move it out to where you can visually see it from the inside of the car possibly, and be able to take those out. Those are super simple to take out. There's 4. They are all different plugins, so you can't mismatch and plug them in the wrong place, promise you. So one quick thing to note that I totally forgot about is, so you see that white piece right there that's kind of holding all the wires in place. So pretty much move it, it's held down by a screw. Just unscrew that, and then you'll be able to take this whole thing out, and that's that. Okay, so here's the back of the gauge. I'll talk about this real quick. So the bulbs you're going to need for all your bigger ones, there's going to be 194 bulbs. Be able to take them out, just turn to the left, pull out. Got red LEDs in here, which I'm probably going to replace here soon because I do not like the output of them, or I'm just messing up because they're LEDs and not your traditional incandescent bulbs. So yeah, anyways, put them back in, just push them back through, turn to the right, lock in, you're good to go. All the bulbs that came in this car look like this for the 194s, the bigger ones. Got one here. They're primarily for like your tachometer, speedometer, all that good stuff. They're total of 4 in the back. All these small ones right here are like T5, T10s. T5, T10 bulbs. You can find all these off Amazon, eBay, local hardware store. I almost said hardware store. I mean, you might, who knows. Do this while filming, or just really stupid. So there's all that. Let's talk about the harnesses real quick that you got to unplug. So a total of 4. One here, one there, big one right here in the corner. This is the only one you can actually take out without pulling out the whole dash, but there really is no point in doing that. But I'm just letting you know, just accessibility, it is possible. This right here is your Speedo cable. Quick note on this, just so in case any of you guys go through this. So cable driven, this turns, as your transmission turns, it turns a cable, and this cable turns and it gives you obviously your current speed, as well as turning your sorry, I'm blanking here real quick, pretty much your mileage. So signs to look out for in these old cars, So if you have a chance, like I'm gonna do right now, put some oil on it or lubricate it somehow, WD-40, whatnot. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. Reason being is, as time goes on, depending on the area you live in, or just depending on a lot of different stuff that's out of your control, they can bind. And when they bind, that means it's about to snap. When it snaps, you got to change that whole cable out, and it's gonna suck. And yep, you won't have speed. But the worst thing too, which is gonna be kind of sketchy, depending on what you want to do with the car, is the mileage also won't be registered as well either without that. So make sure if you ever have a chance to do maintenance on that cable itself, to do so. So certain signs that you'll know it's about to go is if you hear constant clicking. If that clicking gets faster as the faster you drive and it's coming from here, that's what that is. So take that out, inspect it, see what's going on. Moving on back to the light stuff. As I said, T5, T10, you guys can find that online. If you guys want to see what these bulbs look like, factory. Little small guys, little small dudes. And up top, so actually real quick, so all this stuff right here would probably just be like for your turn signals, hazard signal, or hazards check engine, not check engine light, high beams, just like brake lights, kind of like simple stuff that you have easy control of. Up top here is going to be like the check engine light, oil pressure light, all like your warning sign lights that you pretty much never want to see turn on. And there's one missing there. I don't know what that's, probably for cruise control or something, which I don't have, and I'd be surprised if any of you guys watching have cruise control that actually works still. Okay, so he's showing you guys all that, and that's pretty much it. I'll take this cover off to show you how I did that. Okay, took it out, said 2 screws holding it, I can find my finger, there it is. 2 screws holding it in place. Here's the actual thing connected to the thing. If you're wondering like what the heck, why is that weird black pattern there, it was pretty much because, as I said, the 2 bulbs that used to go in here from factory illuminate this entire thing. Just think about this whole thing as like a light bar, and all the blue here is all the light, the appropriate light going to where it needs to get to illuminate this whole gauge face. If all this was clear, then this whole thing would be blasted with light, and it may be too overbearing on your eyes, especially at night driving. So just some things that, you know, Honda actually considered. You can run without it, it's up to you, because this blue piece just pops right off. As I said, it's held on by a mild adhesive. I'm not going to take it off right now, but if you guys can kind of see in here, there's more focuses, there's a LED strip in there. I'll show you where this is wired here in a second. And I just stuck it in there. It's blue. You guys can do whatever color you want, but that's the color I chose to go with. And just close this back up. I can't remember if it just popped back on and some of that adhesive still stayed sticky enough to stay there, but I mean, it stayed there for over a year driving and it hasn't fallen through inside the dash, so I guess it works. And yeah, moving on to how I wired this on, and then I'm gonna show you one more thing and I'm gonna wrap up this video. Okay, actually it's been like years since I wired this thing, so I was trying to remember how I did it. The way I thought I did it was not it. So I actually now remember. So basically one's positive and one's negative. Negative, just find somewhere, piece of metal by hand here in the dash. You will find one just to ground it down to. And then for it to get power when you turn on your running lights or accessory lights or your headlights as well. If memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure I connected it, I spliced it into the cigarette lighter LED light. So believe it or not, when you turn this on, what am I talking about? You guys are 3Gs owners. So when you turn this on, you should see a green glow coming from here. So there's another LED, I believe it was like a T5 or T10 style bulb. So I just spliced it in that wire. In fact, I might have just took that bulb out and just wired it through this completely. Memory serves me right. I can't remember. It's been a while. I hardly ever use that to charge anything. It's not like I've taken this car on road trips in a while. I don't really plan to for a while, if ever. Who knows? So yeah, that's how I hooked it up. Power goes to whatever LED light illuminated the cigarette lighter. So there's that. What I thought I hooked it up to, I'll show you guys this anyway, just in case you guys have any further accessories you may want to add on to this car in the future, whether it be a gauge or whatnot. If you take this down, if you still have one of these things and you haven't lost it, okay, let's see if I can focus in on it. Okay, you see where that red wire is in the center, and that sort of tannish wire going into that unit right there. Those 3 plugs are like your accessories. Those things are blank, but they're also a 12-volt source. Depending on how they are wired in, one of them will sometimes will always have power. Some of them will only have power when the ignition, or when the car is on, or the ignition's turned. Some of them will only turn on when your headlights are turned on, or your accessory lights are turned on. So you got to figure out which one, what does what, if you have a test light. So yeah, just for you guys that didn't know, because like looking at it from the bottom, I can do that. It's a wiring mess. It's kind of hard to see, but looking at it from up top, it's pretty easy to see clearly. So just for you guys in the future planning on running, like, you know, as I said, gauges or any other aftermarket lighting or whatever, there's an option for a 12-volt accessory source for you if you feel like you do not want to splice into anything. Okay, so if you guys want to ultimately pimp out your gauge cluster, here's one last option that I can think of. So if you guys have watched the DA gauge cluster video, same thing. Push these 3 tabs down, this thing pops up like this on a hinge, and you have access to remove this back face right here, not the gauge faces themselves. There are aftermarket gauge faces. They're pretty hard to find nowadays. If you do find one, more than likely you're going to find an automatic one and not a manual one. But the only ones I've ever seen, at least that members have had, were like white faces with like red numbering, if memory serves me correct. But best of luck to find them if you guys can find them out there. eBay is pretty much like the best place to find them if you were to find one. So yeah, if you guys want to, you guys can take this back plate off right here, this part. You guys can paint them, lay down some carbon fiber vinyl wrap or some crazy rainbow color or whatnot, whatever you guys want to do. Just keep in mind when you do so, especially if you guys decide to do paint it, these symbols right here, seatbelt, oil light, turn signal light, battery light, all those come with this back piece, so make sure to mask them off properly. And another thing you guys can do also is pop off the needles carefully, very carefully. And if you guys want to, you guys can also paint those in a really like bright translucent color. A member that I know, his name is Josh, he did one on his needles. He did like a really cool bright translucent orange, so when the background light, which I believe was blue, when it hit it, it really illuminated it and gave it this really cool like black light effect on it. And yeah, just other stuff to consider, guys. Like, you can do whatever color you want. Maybe even do a glow in the dark spray paint on it, or some sort of coating, which would be pretty cool. It sounds kind of silly, but I mean, who knows? Maybe one time or one night something happens and you're driving at night, you lose all gauge cluster lighting for whatever reason. At least that lighting could have illuminated that that glow in the dark material long enough to where it stayed lit, and at least it gives you an idea where you're at, speed wise, speedometer wise, fuel, tank, who knows, could be a good backup. That's all I'm saying. All right, so I'm going to be putting everything back together. It's pretty simple. It's the same way as you guys took it off. Just reverse the order. As far as like the wiring plugins go, like you can't really mess that up. All the plugins plug in one spot. You can't mix them up, even as far as like the accessory stuff for like the permanent pop-ups, rear window defroster, whatnot. All those will only have plugins that'll fit it one way. So I'm gonna go on and do that. I'm gonna go grab the battery out of my DA Integra, put it in here, and just light it up for you so you guys can see it. Okay, got the battery up, and there you go. See what I mean about how the red isn't really shooting back. If I unplug the blue LED strip up top, and you just see the red, it really isn't that bright. I'm trying to get it to where it looks a little bit more overbearing on camera than it is in real life, but just gives you guys an idea. Alright guys, that's about does it. If you have any questions, ask me in the comments below. I'll answer them as fast as I can, the best I can. If you guys need to get a hold of me to ask me any other questions in regarding to the stuff that's going on my channel, hit me up my Instagram page, Asian_Zensation. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And yeah, that's about does it, guys. It's a crazy world out there. I hope you all stay safe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.